I missed seeing a lot of you last month. It's so uncommon that we don't have a meeting, but missing May felt like it's been forever.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be back together with you all. It feels really good. As you know, maybe you remember, I talked about it in April and maybe I talked about it in March, but for the balance of this year, even though we're going to do our regular kind of things during the monthly meeting, but I'm turning it over to one topic for the rest of the year. So the balance of the meetings are going to be thematic. And I can tell that your guides have a lot of interesting things planned for the year. I'm really excited about it. I've given probably thousands of seminars by now, and when I can find that they still have new, fresh information to talk about, I don't even know where all the content comes from. It's endless, it's limitless, it's a bottomless well, and it's exciting to me to find out that that really exists like that. So we'll be entering into that new topic tonight for the first time. Okay, so what the new topic is that we're starting, and also if when you checked in, you were asked if you wanted to be included in the readings at the end of the night. So if your name was ripped off the tab, that means that I can pull your name out of the hat later for readings. If anyone doesn't want to be read, let me know. So if I pull your name out, I won't call on you. But most people like when their names get called.
So
But if,
what did you say?
everyone who's registered tonight I have their name, and I'll pull people out at the end of the night to read them. So think about if you have a question. Huh?
Can I put my name in the hat?
It's
Your name is
your
already
name is
in there.
yeah. Yeah, your name is in there.
Jeannie's got it covered.
Yeah, we got it covered. Okay, we got it all covered.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to be a part of that, sometimes people don't want to be a part of it. Just let me know. You can let me know during the break, and then I'll discreetly pull you out so no one doesn't. So people don't know you don't want to be a part of it. There, how's that? Okay, so the topic that we're starting, and I still will do the readings at the end. So if you guys think about a question you might have for the readings at the end, so if you get picked, you can direct it to a specific focus. But the topic is exploring the soul, okay? And the reason that we are using this topic for the balance of the year and spending so many months on it is because we've laid the foundation for years now about what it means to be here. Why are we human? Why are we having these earth lives? What is it that we can do to get ourselves out of the way? What is it that we can do to have happier lives? How can we increase our relationship with abundance, with the relationship we have with our bodies, with the relationship we have with ourself and self-love? How can we increase our relationships with other people? So basically, we have laid the groundwork, and we've been looking at all of these topics for years and years and years in detail. But one of the things that's most important is the thread that pulls it all together, that we have something in common that we're really doing in being here, is that we are exploring our souls. We're exploring the nature of our being, and by exploring the nature of our being, we're also exploring the nature of everyone else's being. And there's an infinite ways to create your own path in that exploration. But what's difficult is that our society and our world really doesn't teach us a process. We kind of just are thrown into day-to-day activities, and now you have to go here, and now you have to go to school, and now you have to stand up, and now you have to sit down, and now you have to stand in a single file, now you have to open this book, now you have to be quiet, now you can't daydream, now you have to go to church, now you have to do this. And all the have-tos and shoulds and all the explanations of right and wrong and what makes you a good person and what makes you not a good person, we all take that information in at different levels. So we're not all relating to it at the same level. So it means that there is no universal, acceptable, or reasonable answer about what does deem you worthy or what makes you a good person. And there really shouldn't be, because with the infinite variety of people and opportunities and the way our lives play out, there should not be two people that are the same, nor should there be two pathways to get to the abundance and freedom of fulfillment that we're allowed to have in being human. So exploration of the soul is getting down to the core of it. Despite what others have told you about right or wrong or who you are or what you should be or what you should do or what you should not, this year we're going to find out the truth of it, and we're going to learn how to block out other people's versions or reimagine other people's versions and get to the core of the essence of our being. when I started to be able to communicate with non-physical sources, the most exciting part of it was to start to shed all of the stuff that other people had put on me. Their interpretation of me, their interpretation of their place in my life, their interpretation of what I should do for a living, whether I should be white or black or heterosexual or homosexual, or I should practice a religion, or if I should weigh this or be that tall or drive this car or go to that school. You know, regardless of the body that you've landed in, you have a lot of checks in front of you that other people say put you in the plus column, and then there's a whole lot of minuses that people are telling you put you in the minus column. But none of that is true. None of it is true. All of that is made by mankind. And in order to be able to break free of all of that misinformation and the shackles that it literally puts on us, it's very encumbering to have all these labels and expectations on us. In order to really find out what you are and what you're capable of, we have to start getting rid of other people's interpretation of who we are or what we're supposed to be. So exploration of the soul is going to be about that. Last month we kicked it off in my New York City group, and already I can tell that this group, even though this is our first month, and so next week it'll be my second month for the city group, I can already see we're not going to be paralleling exactly. We're going to be doing our own little version of it, and that's thanks to you, because it's your guides and whoever shows up in this room each month that's going to determine how this topic goes or how it bends in the road. What might be more appropriate for the people that are in the city on that night might not be the best appropriate topic or use of our time here. There'll be a lot of things in common, but there'll also be a lot of differences that are unique. You know, those of you who have known me for a long time, you've never heard me give the same presentation twice, ever. Even if I'm giving exactly the same topic, it's still not going to be the same presentation. Because I don't have a specific agenda for you. The only thing that I am for you is I'm a conduit to the information that you can benefit from. And that's my role. I love my role. And so this is really all up to you. Everything that happens tonight and everything that happens through December in this meeting, you can thank yourself for it because you are the ones that are responsible for it. Okay? I can also tell you that I've learned from giving a lot of 3 or 4 day seminars over years that experiential learning has a high degree of a higher degree of being able to implement it than only listening. So throughout the rest of this year, we're also going to be doing some very cool experiential things, all right? And I want to get you on board with that. Everything that we do this year, I have gotten a couple of little sneak previews, but it's all going to be that it'll help you to see something in a different way. That's the point, is to help you see something in a different way. Okay? I'm really excited about it. I think we're going to have a lot of fun together. I also want to let you know, because it's kicking off pretty quickly, but beginning on the 28th, I'm going to be doing an intuition development class. I realize that a lot of people have taken my intuition development classes, so just like everything else I do, I really don't repeat anything. This is going to be brand new material, things I've never taught before. I was going to wait till the fall because we had a really nice group of like 15, 20 people that were taking a class together and they wanted part 2. But I just had this feeling that even developing our intuition, we have a tendency to take everything so seriously all the time, right? Everything is life and death. Well, intuition development, if you bring a lighthearted spirit to it, you actually are going to be able to advance your intuition better. So I thought, what better time of the year to do that than the summer, when we're a little more playful, we're a little bit more lighthearted, we feel like we have a little more free time, the sun doesn't set till 9:30, you know, so we're going to be doing it this summer, 3 meetings, and it's beginning, I think it's 2 weeks from tonight is the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, and Michelle happened to be very excited about this, so we're actually going to do it here. We're not doing it where I held the big one in the spring. We're going to be doing it right here, so you guys have no problem navigating, you know exactly where it is. So we will be doing that. One of the things that I've never focused on before in intuition development class is automatic writing. If it's a topic that you've ever heard of, fantastic, because I teach it in a way that, with private clients, I teach it in a way that I've never seen it being taught before. If you don't know anything about it, the way that I teach it, almost everybody has at least some success with it, and that I think alone is a great takeaway from that intuition class this summer. Okay, the rest I'll talk about after the break. All right, so exploring the soul. One of the first things that is really important to do is to take a moment and see how you identify yourself, because you do identify yourself. If I were to put you in a room of 1,000 people that you don't know, and you were to just look at everybody and talk to everybody, there's no person in that room that you would describe the way that you would describe yourself. You know that you are unique. You know that you have a lot of differences from every other person. But what you might not realize is that you have a strong sense of who that person is, that is you. So the first thing we're going to do tonight is we're going to just take a couple of quiet minutes when Jeannie is done popping open her seltzer bottle. Oh, it has fresh mint in it. Maybe she should go, oh, I know what I forgot. We made lemonade to kick off the summer. Yay, lemonade tonight. In addition to the coffee. I forgot about that. Her mint reminded me that we have lemonade tonight. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do tonight is, if everybody has a paper and pencil, if not, I'll get you some. But we're going to have a couple of quiet minutes just to write your own version of who you are. You know, just jot down adjectives, I am, and write down who you are, whatever you see yourself as. If I were to walk into that room of 1,000 people, and I don't know anybody in the room, write down how I'm going to identify you, okay? But before we start the sheet, Joan, before we start writing, it's always better if we clear our heads a little bit first before we start a writing assignment like this. So first of all, does anyone need paper or pen? Anyone?
Okay, if I type in my iPad?
Oh, you absolutely can. Totally. Susan?
I'm good.
You're good. All right. Nailed that. I hope the rest of the night goes this well. Okay. So before we start this process, all I'm going to do is just channel something from your guides to kind of set the tone, set the mood. And after I'm quiet, who knows, I'll probably say begin or something like that. And then we just have a couple of moments, a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, just to record your thoughts. Okay? How does that sound, everyone? All right, so just listen for a few minutes or however long I'm talking. I don't know how long it'll be. Okay, I was born a pure soul in this human body. When I was born, I was quite clear about who I am. In the years that I have had my feet on this planet, other people have given me instructions about what my identity is. I've taken in a lot of that information and I identify with a lot of it. Between what I knew when I was born and coupling that with what I have learned from others, I think I have a good idea of who I am. And in a moment, I'm just going to jot down my perception of who I am on this piece of paper in front of me, effortlessly and flowingly, without resistance. There is no judgment. There is only my feelings and my version of who I am. Begin. Very, very complex. A few of you are going to keep working on this list long after you leave here tonight, in through the night, and maybe not finished by the time you get up in the morning. That's so funny. It was fun to watch that. Like, wow. All right. Does anybody in the room work in the healthcare field? Raise your hand. You got a couple of people? All right. Did you write down your job in the list? Did you write down your job? All right. Does anybody here work in teaching? Or did you write that down?
No.
Did you write that down?
Well, I'm a Reiki master and I'm also a spiritual teacher, so I'm kind of both.
Yeah. Did you write it down?
Did, yeah.
Okay. Anybody here? And you? Did you write it down?
No.
Okay. All right. Did anybody write down if they have any kids, or if they? Did you write down?
At the end, I said, I am mother, I am daughter, I am sister, I am.
Okay. Did anybody write anything else about relationships? Did you write whether you're married or single? Huh?
Into relationships.
Okay, all right. Anybody write anything about their religion or hobbies?
No.
No? Nothing. All right, so you guys already are very, very, very focused on not necessarily identifying yourself by what you do. So your answers are already showing that you have had some opportunity to peek into what the essence of your being is. Does anybody want to share a couple of things on their list that they wrote?
It's going to be all I am statements, as you're very familiar with.
Yes, I am.
Because the more you come into that, the more you realize I am that I am.
Yes.
I am
Yes.
divine love, which is what I'm created from. I am creative in the now moment. I'm living through the moment of self in a holographic reality of all that is. I'm in the middle of God's energetic self, which I thought it was funny. In an interview, somebody asked the spiritual teacher, "Where is God?" He goes, "You're sitting in the middle of it."
That's funny.
I'm connected to divine gratitude, so it's mostly I am statements.
Okay.
That's deep.
Maybe I
Mine.
need this.
Nobody can read
share
theirs
after
now.
Charlie, could you just come and sit up here, please? Anyone else? After that, anybody else want to share a couple of things?
Come on.
I'm out.
Nobody else do that.
Hold it. Gotta know when to hold it and know when to fold it.
Oh, I did it wrong.
I am Charlie.
I changed mine to I am a dummy.
Yeah, really.
Okay, Sue.
I put probably almost the same things as you, but
Oh.
I'm funny, I'm personable, possibility thinker, I'm love, I create, I'm discovering, and sometimes I don't play full out. And then being so full in a body is tough at times. So I go to smile.
Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Now, I want you to, I'm not going to ask you necessarily to jot this next one down, only if you want to jot it down, but I just want you to think about this for a second. Now, suppose I put you all in the same room again, and I have people that you know come in, and they have to describe you to others that are coming in so that they can find you, all right? So your coworkers, your family, your spouses, your kids, your neighbors, if I set them up to describe you, and then strangers have to go in and find you in that crowd of 1,000, how are they going to find you? What are they going to say? Who are you? What are the people that you know going to say you are? How will they identify you? Huh.
Well, it's physical.
Yeah.
More than physical.
Yeah.
It's physical.
Yeah.
It is.
All right, what if I said that when we go into the room, you get to chat it up with everybody a little, and you're going to have to discover who this person is, like a little bit of a scavenger hunt. Then what are they going to say about you? When they start to think, maybe I should add personality traits in here, right? What else are they going to say?
What you do.
What you do.
What you do. That's the next thing that they're going to go to. They're going to go to what you do. They're going to go to the thing that they know to be most prominent on your mind in the moment. So if you're struggling with an addiction freshly, they'll probably say she's struggling with an addiction. If you're a new mom, they're going to say she has a brand new baby. If you're a new whatever, they're probably going to describe you in terms of what you do with your time, right? Interesting. Did you describe yourself in terms of, how does that happen?
Your appearance, your sexuality, your religion, your preferences, your economics, your education. How would you feel about describing yourself like that?
Judgmental.
Yeah. Is it inclusive?
No.
No. Do you feel that all of those things that were handed to you from someone else in this lifetime are a good match? Do they parallel with your being?
No.
So what doesn't parallel with you, Joan?
Oh God, so much. It doesn't parallel that. Well, this is like personal stuff, though. But churches don't parallel with my being because they're man-made, and They have faults just like we as humans all have faults. So I have issue with putting myself in any kind of box, and I have issue with anyone putting themselves. I don't have issue with anyone, actually, really. Whatever floats your boat, but that divides us, I guess, is what I'm saying. So that's a big one for me. And so is education. You know, I mean, I am highly educated. I have my master's, but at the same token, I just said that. I just put myself in an inclusive place. That was rude. But I don't like when people first present that, and I don't usually first present that. I also don't like being defined by, I was defined a certain way by the outside world because of what my family, where they lived, what my father did, what my mother did. And I remember as a young child always being like, but that's not me. Thinking in my head, like, why do these people keep doing this to me? Like, it was weird. Like, knowing that, well, I'm not this, but you don't even want to get to know me because you've already figured what you think. That's happened a lot in my life.
Yes, yes.
So as a result, I've been fighting that. Like, no, don't do that. You know,
Right.
even with my, like, I'll tell my kids, no, don't say, oh, those people are rich or those people are poor. What do you care? Like, that's not a way to define. And God willing, you'll be filled with abundance, and so that you can help the world and you can do great things. I'm not saying it's bad, but don't define anyone with that.
Wow.
So I've always been fighting that. As a matter of fact, one of the things I put here was I want to be with like-minded people because it's lonely. It's lonely,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and most people don't understand.
Okay, now let's go to another version of who we are. How do you feel about your gender? Do you think that what we assume your gender means is an accurate description of who you are? Who does?
I do.
You do? Everybody else?
Veto. I don't know, it's a hard question to, you know.
It depends on how you,
But
Yeah, I
in
don't
all
mean
my
it, you know,
explorations
right? Yeah.
with you, it's been pretty consistent. I really enjoy being female, but what's fascinating to me is that I have so many friends and acquaintances and close people that are part of the LGBTQ community, and I find them wonderful. And even those that define themselves as Q are so fascinating for me and for themselves, as long as they feel free to experience those feelings. The ones that I've met that feel that they cannot communicate who they are or who they choose not to be, if they just are pansexual, if they're comfortable with that, it's an amazing thing. If they grew up in a very religious society that crushes that kind of thinking, then it's actually damaged their soul, and I have been seeming to find a lot of these people and try to bring them out as a result. But I love what I am.
Yeah. Happy? Check. Got that. It's interesting, but when you think about gender, even your gender, you know, we are these bodies, and short of transitioning to a different gender, if we feel that we were kind of placed into the wrong gender, we do sometimes absorb cultural definitions of what it means to be that gender, okay? Like weak or strong, intuitive or logical, passionate or angry. A lot of the things that we associate with human behaviors, we tend to put them in a left or right column. There's the feminine traits and there's the masculine traits. And oftentimes, if a person is modeling what doesn't necessarily fit into the construct of what we say are the feminine or the masculine traits, then we feel uncomfortable. And we either downgrade our belief that we have some of that other gender trait, or we work and work and work to try to make that be out there in the forefront, to rebel against other people's perception of what our gender should be.
So I have a comment about that,
Yeah.
only because I think that was more true years ago, but I think now, even though you can be very happily female, you can possess a lot of male traits and be totally comfortable with that, and
I think you're right in this
ways.
room,
Mm.
but I think when you get outside of a spiritual development group, I don't know that that's necessarily true yet. We're really not there yet. And I think it's fantastic because you can tell that a lot of people in this room feel very comfortable with their feminine and their masculine traits. But in the rest of the world,
Okay.
it's not necessarily true. And
That's true.
much of the United States, they're not comfortable with it yet. Or other people are still telling them the expectations of who they're supposed to be and what their successes should be and where they should hold back based on their gender. But even more interesting than that is that we even have such a thing as what we perceive as being a feminine or a masculine trait. When we're really thinking about exploring the soul, we have to say, is there really two columns? Or has that been made by man?
The outside world would have to come into the understanding of past life regression, because then once you start looking at those cases, you've been both the master and the slave. You've been both male and female in many different times. So once you come into the understanding of that, then there is no hardcore, I'm this and that's all that I am.
Yes. One, in most of you in here know that I do go to past lives. I've read many thousands of past lives from people now. And, I have a 50% chance of reading you as a female in your past life or you as a female in your past life. And the more I read your lives, the more I'm going to find an incredible balance between the numbers of time that you were in a female body and the numbers of times that you were in a male body. Sometimes I see a little bit of, a little bit more here or a little bit more there, because your soul is on a development path where taking on that gender one more time can open up your lens of perception in ways that being the opposite gender might not have given you the opportunity to. Because it's also about the setting. Where do we land geographically and where do we land in time? If we land in 1800 versus landing in 2017, where we land geographically in that year is going to have a big impact on how we perceive whether we are male or female or happy being in what's assigned to us about what it means to be masculine or feminine or what those traits are that we associate with it. So we do change it up. And then, even beyond just the lives that we live here, one of the nicest angles of perception that I get to bring is the angle of being without a body, being back to full consciousness, reconnecting with all that is, reconnecting with the full of my entire eternal conscious memory database, if you will, reconnecting with my soul, and Karen is a memory. When I'm in that state of consciousness, it took me time to adjust, but communicating with souls in that state of consciousness, there is no gender, and souls don't have a gender. And in the beginning, when I would travel to that space, when I would have the shift in consciousness that I could return to my full being, guys used to make it inviting and simple for me to be there, so I wouldn't snap back out of it, back into Karen's body. And to make it inviting and soothing and welcoming for me, they would always project themselves with a masculine or a feminine body. because I needed to feel comfortable in the new space. It had to echo my experiences and my memories as Karen. Because if I went into a genderless experience, even though it was only unconditional love, I would have felt like I needed to come back to a frame of reference that was more familiar. Because we do keep going back to what is familiar. So little by little, in years of traveling and experiencing that state of consciousness, little by little, and I'm telling you very little, guides would swap the projection of their gender while I was interacting with them. Or they would let me experience them, and then they would take away any imagery at all. So I would only experience the essence of their being energetically without having what we would perceive as being a human form connected to it. And they did this very gently because they understand how sewn up we are into the frame of reference of the human experience. And they knew that if I were to be put into a space that was eerie or so unknown that I couldn't find my ground, I couldn't find my legs in it, they knew that I wouldn't come back. So in order for me to be able to experience as much as I can experience there, they had to gently entice me, like trying to get a little kid to eat broccoli. All right? So they didn't give me broccoli flat out. They tried to allure me with cotton candy. So I went for the cotton candy, and then I found the broccoli. And the broccoli was pretty good. Now I eat more broccoli than cotton candy. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Darn guys! It's funny when one of my kids, when he was 5, and he was the kid that we, he had no choice but to know what mom does for a living, right? The other kids, they had a choice because they were a little older when it all happened. So the little one, he's got no choice how to deal with it. So I have this new role of how to, he's coming and asking me what I have to tell him what he can say and cannot say at school, right? So he asks a lot of questions. So he's 5 years old, and he's like, well, what do I tell them? What do I say? What do I say? And I have to explain. And then he'd be like, well, what do you mean the energy realm? What do you mean? My whole answer was, Mommy gets to visit the energy realm.
Oh my God.
He's like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And I'm like, all right, I'm going to just make it very, very simple for you. Just tell your friends that in the energy realm, kids can have any cotton candy color that they want as often as they want, and it's good for them. And he's like, all right. So he got it. He got it. He figured out what the energy realm was. He figured it out. No broccoli. Broccoli-free zone. And so in those experiences in being in the energy realm, I learned to let go of my precepts. And what I did with the more time that I spent there was I realized that virtually everything that we experience through our lens of perception in the human journey is a precept. That nothing is real. The only thing that is real is love. And when we can get back to that core of love, then we get to decide what we are. We get to decide who you meet. We get to decide how we feel about what we're projecting we are. We get to be our own choice of projection, because that's what we're doing, is we're projecting ourselves. I had a high-powered career before my first child was born, so I went into semi-retirement because my job demanded that I travel a lot, and there was no way that I was going to leave this little kid without me around. No way, you know. I might have not figured out entirely how to be a parent from my own childhood, but one thing for sure I knew was that when I brought a kid into this world, I was going to raise that kid. I wasn't going to echo anything or do anything different from my parents, but I was just going to raise that being, and you got to be there to raise the kid, right? So I quit, and up until that moment, I had been defined by others, by my intelligence, by my career, by my promotions, by my earnings, by my grades, by my academic achievement. I'd been defined like that since I was a little girl. And the definition of who I was was so welcomed by me. It was certainly better than what I was actually experiencing in my life and all the other areas that didn't have to do with my profession or my academics, that I took it on as identification of my own being. I became my job, I became my schools, I became whatever I'd achieved, I became my income. I kept breaking the female income barriers in my industry, so I became that. I became the female income barrier breaker, and this is how I define myself. So all of a sudden, we have to pause for a second. Is the backup working to the backup?
Battery.
Backup's a fail, nothing, right?
No data.
Yeah, you're right, let me see. I don't know what, let's see, there we just, let's change that date card. Yeah, I guess that's it. Okay.
Boy,
All right, good.
Hold
So
that thought.
we'll hold that thought. So let's talk about this. So New York City, the next group is Monday. I told you about that. So if anybody ever wants to come in, the New York City group it's so entirely different energetically than this group. I can't even figure out why it's so different, but it is, right, Bill?
The room.
Huh? Is it the room? We meet in a big round room, and the people are all lovely. They all come in as souls. They leave their human baggage outside, just the way this room does, but there's still something very different about it. It's fun. We are kicking off the second event of Piece It Together. Second event. It starts on next Wednesday. Wednesday the 21st. What we're going to be doing is I have literally 70 pounds of rocks and lots of paint and lots of
So it's
lots
not
of
BYOR?
paint brushes. You don't have to BYOR. We will be, I don't remember the town we'll be in. Does anybody remember that? Where am I? East Islip? Islip. We'll be in Islip painting rocks. And we're going to paint rocks. I'm bringing some visual motivation and inspiration of painted rocks of what we can do. We can make it artsy, you can just put a word on there, you can put a message on it, but I'll have some ideas for everybody, or you just go ahead with your own ideas. So the painting party is to create these love rocks. Part 2 of the event will be hiking on June 24th. Hiking on June 24th, we're going to take our painted rocks with us, and we're going to plant them around the trail. On the bottom we'll have stickers for how people can get in touch with us after they find a rock. And they can post their picture on our Piece It Together Facebook page. There'll also be a component in there where they can read how they can keep the movement going. You know, go home and paint your own rocks, plant your own rocks, or replant the one that you found. The idea is to focus on something wonderful in the world, which is peace, reaching out to strangers, caring about people that you've never met, giving people a little bit of a sparkle for the day, having a happy surprise come. And we have, ours is going to be on Long Island, but we do have people in Ohio, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and South Carolina that are participating too. So Love Rocks and Piece It Together. If you can't be at the first and you can only attend the second, that's fine. I'm going to bring extra rocks if you can only be there. If you can only be at the first and not the second, I will take your rocks and bring it to the second event.
What kind of
Or you can plant them yourself somewhere, anywhere. Leave it at a grocery store. Leave it under a park bench. Leave it in motor vehicles. Just get them out there, okay? Wherever you think a little light and shine and love might be helpful.
Where's the hike at in the town?
We're still working on where the hike is. So far we have 2 votes for one place, but there's a parking admission fee. So we're trying to find a place where you don't have to pay to park. But I'm still working on that. It will be at 10 in the morning. That much I do know. And it'll be somewhere along the Greenbelt Trail, more than likely. But we're working on just getting the parking location first. We're going to try to do our best to make it so that the hike is pretty much like under 2 hours for those of you who don't hike on a regular basis. So mapping it out so that we're making sure we're having a good experience on the hike is something that we're working on as well. Okay?
I don't think there's any admission into Blydenburg.
There is. That was
So
one of the
somebody
places.
does the booth?
Yeah, they do. That was one of them that we had. Because
Yeah.
around the lake is 6 miles we were going to walk in to and walk back out to,
Right.
but they have And you also have to be a resident in order to even get in.
Right, because it's county, but I didn't think they manned the booth anymore.
Yeah, I think they,
From
someone said that they
Memorial
do.
Day.
Yeah.
If you go into the
From
other
weekends.
part, it's fenced off now, so you can't really walk through the library, I don't think. But Green Gate is right, it's parking lot right on the highway there.
Green Gate is an option, definitely. We're also thinking down by, yeah, getting into the Greenbelt Trail by like the rinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're going to work on that, I promise. If you said yes and piece it together on the Facebook page and the invite, we're staying in touch with you. And if you're not on the invite page on Facebook, then just make sure I'll check your name off and we'll email you the details as we get closer. Sunday will be the rain date. The 24th is a Saturday. The 25th will be a rain date if we need it. Okay? All right. Are we good?
Yeah.
We good to go?
Let me turn you on.
I'm turned on. Thank you. You're good to go. All right, good. Okay, so anyway, so I remember how I felt the very first time I attended a social event after I decided to stay home with my first kid. And at that event, one of the first things that happens, if you're in a social group where nobody knows you, it's the first thing that happens.
You do.
What do you do? And I really felt like I was falling to the earth. I was plummeting to the earth. I had no idea what to say. I had no idea what to say. Because I got that people really don't value a stay-at-home mom in our culture. They really don't.
It might have been partially because of my energy of projecting that I was no longer valuable, but nobody really wanted to talk to me. They really didn't. Like, I could actually feel people just kind of glaze over. Oh, how interesting. That's a very important role. We need more people like you. All right, thank you. And then they're like, oh, is that broccoli? And that's the end. So the next time I went to a social event, I decided I'm going to fix this because this is just not working for me. I need the fix, right? Do you think I did well academically and in my profession for me? No. I did it for all of you so that you would find me interesting.
There you go.
That was it. So the second event, I'm like, I'm going to do something differently. So at this time, I was making little wood things to make a little extra money at the holidays because we had no money. So, and I was selling them, and then I would paint your name on it, all right? And so I'm, making these things at my kitchen table. But this time, next time I have two babies, they're running around, they're throwing up, they're not going to paint over. So I'm still making these things long after the kids go to sleep at night, and I'm selling them like mad. There's no Etsy, people. This is pre-Etsy. I'm making these things and I'm selling them. Impressive, right? Really
Everybody's
impressive.
name was on it?
Huh?
Everybody's name was on it?
The way I made
That's
money.
such a guilt sale, though.
Huh?
That's such a guilt sale. Like,
No, I
if you
would.
made
They
something
would.
somebody has a name,
They
how do
would.
you not buy it?
They would buy it, and then they would tell me the names. They would order
right.
it, and then I would deliver it. So I had strings of hearts. Everybody bought with their kids' grand names on it, grandkids' names on it. I did that, but it was appealing. No one was personalizing things back then, so they loved this. So anyway, so the next event I go to, it's a wine tasting. You know how down to earth and gentle and embracive they are at the wine tastings, right? Yeah, just all inclusive, all inclusive, right? So I kind of worked my way between the BMWs and the little Mercedes and all this, and I get into the building, and the first person's like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "I'm an artist." And he said, "Really? Really? What? You're an artist? Oh, how interesting! Tell me more." And I'm like, "See, look at this. If I weren't conscious, I really would have swapped out one identity for the other and then just ran with it for life because the world just embraces you more when you have something interesting to say about yourself." And what I really, in hindsight, what I got to realize is that even if we're not defining ourselves by the stuff that it is that we do or how we spend our time, other people are. Other people are. And until more and more people are living as souls, we're going to still live in this world where we're coming up against judgment and exclusion and feelings of superiority or even inferiority based on anything, And exploration of the soul means that in order for you to fully embrace every person, shape, size, color, and everything else going on in the world, you have to do it for yourself first. Because you really don't know what it's like if you are living to a selected identity that somebody else thrust on you. If you haven't got rid of other people's versions of your identification yet, and you don't know at the core of your being who you are, then it's going to be impossible for you to be that one that is making soul-to-soul connections. It's going to be impossible for you to be the one that's all-inclusive, that's not separating people or categorizing them. When I started this journey and I started to pop into the energy realm on a regular basis, I'm happy to report that even though I had such a crummy childhood, I was actually maybe a little bit above average in my lack of judgment. I'd already, I guess maybe because I had such a hard time getting here, I'd already learned that everybody has value, and I don't want to pre-sort based on any condition, even if they select that condition or if it was given to them. I'd been pretty good. But then as I started to look even more about identification and exploration of the soul and who are we all, I started to realize that I still was carrying around some biases. I was still carrying some judgment. So imagine I had stripped away the judgments that we're up against all the time. Weight, color, religion, skin color, how you project your identity through tattoos and piercings, color of your hair, ethnicity. All of that, I was done with all that, and I'm proud to say it was not an issue for me. It's really not been an issue for me most of my life. But I had to work a little bit more on some of the others, because the only way I was valued and appreciated in my life, I still felt that I had a little bit of a resistance when somebody didn't have maybe an education, just like you were saying, Joan. I'm embarrassed to say it because it's terrible that I could have been that way. But then I got rid of that one. And I don't even know if I had it that harshly either. I think I just would prefer to be people that had my education level socially. I would prefer to be with them. It wasn't that I thought less of anyone else. It was just my preference. So I blasted through that one. I couldn't care. I could care less. I knew people that were well more educated that had dropped out when they were 17 than I did people that I know that graduated from the top schools. I let go of that one. And I'm plugging along, and I am determined to let go of any resistance that comes from judgment. And I found that I still had one left, one that most of us carry. And if you don't identify it, then once again, you're not able to explore yourself as just a soul. You're still going to have some expectation of who you should be or what you should be. But the last area of judgment that I worked on, and it's amazing when you think about it, how prevalent it is quality of life. Quality of life judgment. Think about this. I could put 10 people up here. They could be in all shapes and sizes and colors and textures and genders and transgenders and sexual identifications. And yet, if I were to sit there and talk with them extensively, if 9 out of 10 of them were really happy and abundant and free and had jobs that they loved, and had the relationships they wanted and the family lives that they wanted, would I feel the same about them as I felt about the one who had just been fired, house was in foreclosure, had never been married, was living in her parents' basement, would I feel the same? Would any of us really feel the same? The answer is probably not. Because we were still holding on a quality of life judgment. And the reason we hold on to it is because it's the last arena when we become more of the souls who we were born to be. It's the last arena where we still give ourselves permission to have a comparative. Comparatives is how we build our perception of our own worth. Without something to compare ourselves to, how do we know if we're worthy? From the moment you're born, you're compared. You're compared from the second you are born. You could be in a little tiny little cradle thing in the grocery store, and your mom's feeding you your little bottle, and another baby is in the cart next to you. And someone's saying, how old is he? How old is he? They're both 3 months. Wow, he's big for 3 months. I thought he was 9 months. Broccoli for everybody. But you don't even know. Like, what's this 3-month-old baby taking in, right? Does the baby remember this? I don't know. But this baby's life is going to be like that forever. How are these seemingly innocuous impressions being taken in? So now if the bigger baby grows up and doesn't feel as worthy as kids that are smaller in his class, what's he going to do? In order to bring back some feeling of being worthy for exactly who he is, he's going to set up a different comparative. He's going to find another reason to find himself superior to somebody else. Because he doesn't want to live feeling less than, and the world already told him that he's less than. That's what we do. We don't intend to do it, but this is what we do. We set up the comparatives. And in a given day, if you're not conscious of your thoughts, you might be surprised if you were to capture your comparative thoughts and see how often you stack up and how often you don't. In one given day, the little thoughts that run through your mind, it is mind-blowing comparatively. Somebody cuts you off.
They asked for it.
Very good. He's right. Who is superior now? Huh? Sue's the one that cuts everyone off. So Sue is the superior one.
Yeah.
But isn't it amazing? It's amazing. So I was giving a speech down to the Center for Women in Charleston, South Carolina. And I had a break. So I normally when I'm in a new city, I just drive and drive and drive until I find something that I think is interesting. Nothing touristy. Usually I find something nature or water or something. So I drive and I stumble upon apparently like a iconic tree in Charleston. Anyone ever see this tree?
Oh my God,
Charleston?
it's so amazing.
So this tree, you gotta see it. It's worth the trip. This tree is a massive tree with branches and trunks all over the place. It's the size of this room, right? The tree is the size of this room.
Way bigger.
And the branches, they go up and they go down and they go up again. So half of these massive branches are on the ground, and then this tree just keeps going up and up and up and up. Beautiful, 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 beautiful tree. So I'm like, I find the tree. There's no sign saying there's the tree, make a left to see the tree. I find the tree, because that was back in the days when I used to let the universe into my life. Now I've kind of cut it out, but when I let the universe into my life, the universe would bring me to the tree. So I'm experiencing the tree. I have to tell you, I am so high because this tree exists. I am so high. So there's signs over don't touch the tree. Oh man. I swear the sign said don't talk too loud near the tree. Oh my God. So there are these signs like everywhere. I mean, it's like human word litter all around this gentle tree, telling us what not to do by the tree. So now, at the time, I think my son was just starting to get out of like pre-imaginative play, but he used to play with his friends these games that he would just get lost for hours in his imagination, these scavenger hunts and all this cool stuff. So in the tree, there's about 10 boys, and I'm happy to report that they were probably in high school, because that makes the story even more interesting. 10 boys playing in the tree, literally playing. They had 2 teams, and they were capturing each other, and they had all sorts of rules, all sorts of rules. I just stood there and listened to the boys. It was like Lord of the Rings on steroids, okay? The things that they were doing. And if anyone caught you with a leg on the mulch on the ground, you were out, you were dead. So the whole object was they had to just spend all of their time in the tree for the game. And I was like, this is like, it doesn't get any better than this. This was like an explosive moment for me. High school kids are not doing drugs.
Yeah, right.
They're all normal looking, like everyday kids, kind of just in a tree playing. No one's looking at their cell phones, and they're enjoying this tree that is there for them, right? So I'm like, I knew the trip was worthwhile. So I decided I'm just going to sit down for a little while, and then some people come on their lunch break, okay? So it's 2 women and a man. And they're like, oh my God, didn't they see the sign? What are those boys doing on the tree? What should we do? Should we call someone? Maybe we should call someone. My best Southern accent. So I'm like, seriously? These kids are not on their cell phones. These kids are not doing drugs. These kids are not in their basements on video games. And you have a problem because this sign tells them they should not touch the tree, right? So I said, I can butt out of most people's
You
business.
said they're my kids.
All 10 of those 14 to 16-year-olds are my kids. Don't I look good? Don't I look good? That should have been my answer.
With a New York accent.
Yeah, with a New York accent, no less. So I clearly don't belong. So this was one of those times where I was just not going to let the moment go. So I just said, I said, the tree is here. It's been here for hundreds of years. I said, there's so many worse things they could be doing, right? And the one woman turned to the other. She's like, they're having fun. And all 3 of them turned over and immediately supported the boys playing in the tree.
Oh, good.
Right? So
Thank
it was just so interesting that I knew right then and there that these 3 people who were there on their lunch hour, that their part of their identification in being good people was following rules.
Right.
That's how they identified themselves as being worthy. They weren't thinking through the tree. They weren't thinking through the boys. They just felt good about themselves because they were obeying, and then they were going to implement somebody else's rule. No judgment, sweetheart. And don't judge my Southern accent either, okay? All right, we're going to take a break so you guys can have some lemonade and coffee. And we will.
All right. What we just took a peek at, all the different ways that we can perceive ourselves and perceive others. It really is just designed to help you understand that the soul that we're born with, each of us, has no identification with the human experience. It has no frame of reference for gender. It has no frame of reference for region of birth or for religion or sexual identification or sexuality. It has no identification at all. What happens when we land into our bodies is that based on what we believe is possible before we decide to take a physical life, call it our quest, based on the magnificence and the altruistic intention of our quest, we're going to land in a body that's just right for our soul's journey at that moment. It's going to match the vibration of our quest. But we're not going to make the selection. We're not going to be able to sit down and pick our gender identification, pick out our sexual preferences, pick out our skin color, pick out the origin of birth, religion, and region, and background from where they all came from way back when. We don't get to choose. And the reason we don't choose is because when we're not in our bodies, we don't have the same obsessive need to control that we have in our bodies. The obsessive need to control is because when we separate from the memory of being the infinite powerful souls that we are, we're afraid. We're afraid of the unknown because we don't remember our own power. And when we don't remember our power, we have to control as many experiences that we're surrounded by as we can. It's the way we feel that we have power again. So here, this body, these circumstances that you got a little stack of circumstances. The rest you make by design. Certain things you might not opt out of that easily, but the rest you design. Did you design it the way that you wanted to design it? Is it designed the way that it matches what you're going to be discovering more and more is your soul's intention, your quest in being here, your altruistic purpose in deciding that you could take another physical life? Is there a match? And if there is not a match, during the course of this year in the exploration of the soul, we're going to find out how to make that a better match. And not that you have to scrap everything, where you live, what you do. It's not about scrapping everything. It's about making the stuff more in alignment with who you know you are as a soul, who you're going to become more and more familiar with, the essence of your being. One of the most remarkable things in traveling even to my own earth lives, and there's probably 8 to 12 that I can visit on a regular basis, and probably 6 or 7 that I know almost as well as I know this earth life now. What gets revealed is that there are these things that make me me. There are lots of things that make me that human. More things made me that human than made me me. But the stuff that makes me me, my soul, the thread exists in lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Just this little thing that is so me. That little thing that is so me. It lands in every body. Everyone tries to cover it. Everyone tries to reshape it. Everyone tries to snuff it or change it or do stuff to it. But it's always there. It's always there. And it's not exactly a personality trait. Personality traits are something that you develop or you have here in this body. It's a thing. It's the uniqueness of you. It's the uniqueness of you that I can relate to in the energy realm about you, the same as I can relate to it about you when you're in a body. And if you're in multiple bodies and I visit you over 1,000 years, I'm still going to know it's you, regardless of your hair color, regardless of how many teeth you have. I'm still going to know it's you, because I know the you in this being. And that you, it evolves, it expands, it grows, it gets closer and closer to the vibration of love. It gets closer and closer to all that is. to existence itself, to creation itself. But it still doesn't change the bit that makes you so unique, so irreplaceable, not to be duplicated ever anywhere. That is the original of you. And in all the things that we do this year, we're going to do our very best to remember what that is, to remember the you in all of this. And in order to do that as most effectively as we can do this year, it's important to understand the premise that our identity is not what we do with our time, it is not our bodies, it is not our religion, it is not our sexual preferences, it is not our gender. That is not who we are. And even if you haven't fully understood that for yourself, it's okay. But during the next month, before we come back together again in July, you look at the world through this lens. And sometimes when people are talking, think about like the little bubble, like a cartoon bubble. You know what their words are. Now go to the unconscious thought bubble behind the words and see how that person identifies themselves. Especially if you're in disagreement with what they're saying or the way that they're behaving. If you can follow the thread to understand what their unconscious thought bubble is behind what they're doing or saying or thinking that they are, you're going to let go of the masks and layers that they're carrying, and you're going to be able to see more clearly to the soul beneath the person. Because anytime we behave in a way that's not aligned with the vibration of love, the only reason we can behave like that or even think like that is because we don't love ourselves fully. I'm generally one, you guys know I don't really love to talk about politics or news, but every now and then you just got to throw someone under the bus because they're a caricature of themselves and they're asking for it, right? So let me throw someone under the bus. Anyone volunteering? Any volunteers? I'm going to do it. I'm going to actually state a name. I know, I generally don't do that. All right, someone in politics, not the one you think we're going to go to, but someone else. And he was grilled yesterday a lot, and his initials are JS, right? So let's just say this JS person. Why is there such strong reactions to JS? If you look at this person's track record, he doesn't like anyone but white men. He really doesn't. White straight men, sorry. He doesn't like, Christian white straight men. Wait, did I get it all? Yeah. He doesn't like anyone but Christian white straight
Wealthy.
Wealthy, yes! Educated. Did I nail it all? We have an acronym for that.
That's an oxymoron.
All right, so there's such a pushback from this person because through the course of his career, he has clearly identified that he does not like anyone that is not a Christian white male. So who feels supported by him?
Only them.
And then they have to be of one. They have to be of one party or the other, and wealthy, right? So we've narrowed down the people that really feel supported by him to just a little tiny blip on the radar. So what does that mean? That means that maybe 95% of our country doesn't feel included in his world. Because we're not included in his world. We're like gnats, or ticks, or cockroaches. That's what we are in his world. Gnats. Right?
Yeah.
That's what we are to him. And you know what it is? We let him get there. We all let him get there. We all let him get there. Because we're not standing up for each other in every single conversation that we have with everybody. We don't have to be brutal. We don't have to be violent. We don't have to be mean. We don't even have to be condescending the way I am about JS right now. This is for illustrative purposes only. We don't have to go to those places to make sure that we're letting other people be included. And we don't have to be, running over and saving people, all dressed in white robes. All we have to do is just keep speaking. That's all we have to do. Gently, calmly, pointing out a little something. And if we do it here, and we do it there, and we do it there, then the JSs of the world will eventually become dinosaurs. There's really absolutely nothing wrong with white, Christian, wealthy men. There's really not. I don't want to be prejudiced against them any more than I would be prejudiced against any other group. But as long as they're the ones that treat everybody else on this planet like we are gnats and cockroaches and mosquitoes and ticks, then we're the ones that can bring them to understand inclusiveness about the soul inside every one of these bodies. That it doesn't really matter what we look like. It doesn't matter if we're educated by anyone else's standards. It doesn't matter if we have piercings and tattoos all over. There is no standard of perfection for being human. There is no standard of rightness for being human. There's none. There is none. So our role, as we're developing our own knowledge of who we are as souls individually, is to remind everybody else of the same. Don't let people make others feel that they are less important for any reason, because there is no one on this planet that's less important than another. There's nobody that's less important than another. And it's our role to pick everybody up. It's our role to make everybody feel like they matter. I know I've had a lot of cases where I'll be in settings and people are intimidated by me. And on occasion, if I get close to somebody and they tell me that they were intimidated by me, I'll say, I try to figure out, why was it? And I realize part of it is just because I look at them in the eyes. I look at them in the eyes, and that's so intimidating. It's so intimidating. Because if you're unsure of yourself, if you're not living to the identity of your soul, if someone else told you that you're less than or something different than you know yourself to really be or forgotten that you are, when someone looks in your soul through your eyes, it's unsettling. You feel vulnerable. You feel scared. You feel naked. You feel like I'm going to see something that I'm not supposed to see. And you'd rather just sew it all back up inside, avert my eyes, and go on and talk to a human instead of to talk to a soul. But try it. Try it. When you find someone that's being not inclusive, you don't have to be mean. You don't have to be brute. You don't have to be anything dramatic. But just be gentle and look in their eyes. Look in their eyes. Look in their eyes. You have to be strong enough and courageous enough to look into their eyes. You have to get to the point that you feel confident enough in your own being that you can look in someone else's eyes. But how are they going to listen to anyone's idea of what a human is if you're not able to decide that this is the truth? If you can't look in somebody's eyes when you're making a suggestion about another way of being, how are they going to believe you? Because you don't believe you. So you have to believe you first. And when you continue to believe you, others will believe you too. I was really excited about the possibility of the Women's March in January. And we actually changed the date of our event so that it wouldn't conflict with the Women's March. The year before us, we changed the date. And then that day, I don't watch the news, but that day, because I felt something was being shown to the world that hadn't been shown in exactly this way before. It was a movement that didn't have a definable enemy or trigger or impetus. It didn't have a single defining moment. No one had actually done anything, right? It was just a transition and a supposed transition of how it would go. So this was really interesting to me. No one's coming out against anything that had particularly happened to them directly. But here's the thing. So what we did was because I wanted to really scan it and stay in touch with that day. And I knew a lot of clients that were participating, whatever city they were in. I knew a lot of people participating, men and women. I knew a lot. So that was kind of cool to me too. So we found this program that would keep going back and forth to wherever the most prominent activity was. So it scanned, it went to Paris, it went to England, it went to DC, it went to New York City, it went to Chicago, it went to LA. And whatever there seemed to be the most, they would hone in on that. And for the beginning of the day, I was so excited. I was so excited. And then I started to listen to the speeches. And I didn't hear them all, so I only can report back on the ones that I did hear. And it was a lot of angry people yelling at a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not where we want to be. That's not where we want to be. I really want you to find a 6-year-old that's going to eat the broccoli when you say, eat the broccoli. It's good for you. Eat the broccoli now. They might eat it, but as soon as you're not around, they're never, ever, ever, ever going to eat that broccoli again. Ever. Okay? You can't get something done by being angry and yelling at people and telling them that they're less than. Inclusiveness means there is no separation. We have to invite people into there being no separation. We can't narrate it. We can't fight it. It's not a fight. It's a choice. It's an invitation. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. Invite people into the opportunity of inclusiveness. That's our role. No more the other way. There are so many people that broke ground for every one of us in more revolutionary ways, but the only path to inclusiveness, the only path to souls living as souls on earth is by invitation, by helping people to remember that we are all one, and that we are all worthy, and that we all matter, and that we all matter equally. So for next month, we're going to be looking at our own souls a little bit more. But in the meantime, keep looking at the world through this lens in this month. Because it's important that your light is on too. It's important that you're conscious. Remain conscious. Be consciously aware of your view of the things that happen. If you want any more evidence that we're heading into this place of inclusiveness, all you have to do is look at how quickly what the hot topic is of the week, the month, the year, the decade. Back in just a few decades ago, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, any topic that was emerging, it took a really long time for more than a few people to talk about it, more than just an article in the newspaper. For it to really become known, it would take years for it to become known. Now it just takes a little tiny, tiny, tiny bit of time. Enlightenment is happening so rapidly that these topics are happening more quickly than we can even wonder what happened to the last topic. So everything from gay rights to transgender to gay rights, marriage equality, every single thing that's been rising so fast with such a tremendous amount of visibility. The reason these topics are coming up so fast and so furiously is because our souls know that it's time for everyone to understand that everyone matters. Our souls are tired of separation and boxes and categories and judgment. We're tired of it. It's played out. Been there, done that. We haven't gotten to a very good place by doing that. I had a client, she's, I have two sisters that are clients, and their parents were from, I'm sorry to say, I can never remember if it's Switzerland or Sweden, but let's go with Sweden. So, they got the whole thing, the blonde hair, blue eyes, they're like 6'11", you know? They look like models, they're just like, wow. So they wanted me to do a session with their mom, who was like in her mid-80s. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be really interesting, right? Born and raised in Sweden, came here when she was like 30. She's not 30 anymore. So I'm like prepped. I don't know what's going to happen. Luckily, I don't have to plan it out. And when she sat down with me, she was like 6'11", stunning, blue eyes, blonde hair, drop dead gorgeous. And so we happened to get onto this side topic because she was living in New York City. So we were talking about, like, how does it feel to live in New York City after being born and raised where you were born and raised? Do you miss it? Do you miss it, right? That's what we're talking about. And she's like, hell no. I have never seen so much sameness in my entire life as in that country. They look alike, they talk alike, they think alike. They all have the same income, they all have the same car. He's like, yes, she said, I know everybody thinks we're so happy, but it's really boring. New York City is where I belong. I'm like, yeah, I never thought of it that way before. She's like, hell no, I'm not going back. All right, high five. High five. It is a high five. Or a low five. My high five. It's just interesting to think differently, right? It's different. It's a different way of thinking. That's what you're going to think about all month. And in the meantime, I'm going to put these names in something that I can't see into, and we're going to read a couple of people. Anybody have a...
There you go. There's a bowl right there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, but I can see that. It's so big.
People's names. You can
Grab a coffee cup.
Oh, where do that? I'll put it in. I'll put it in where I can't see it. I'll put it in here. I did this last week. I had a seminar. There was 100 people at a seminar I did, and I did this at the end of the night. Do you know that everyone thought it was fixed because if we got calls, we got to
And you said, yes, it is.
Yes, it is. I let the universe in that night. So everyone thought it was fixed. I'm like, really? Do I strike you as the kind of person that's about to fix this?
Slide his hand.
It says, what do I want it to say? It says Anne. Anne. Oh, so do you have any particular question?
I do.
Ah.
I did a very brief past life regression last night.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but I didn't really understand it. So what I got out of it was I was a female. I'm going to say it was, I don't really know, like maybe 1800, like late 1800s, maybe early 1900s. I don't know. But I saw myself getting like stabbed, like through the hand, like a sword, something. I don't know how. I don't know what. I was a female. I don't know if I said that. But somehow I thought it got turned into everybody else thought that maybe I did this to myself, and that I felt like I was not understood. Like people were talking. I could tell. Like I could say I died young. But at like the funeral, people were like, nobody like cared about me. They came, but they're all like talking trash about me, basically. So it's like I was totally misunderstood and not appreciated. So somehow something flipped where, can you explain any of that to me?
I can.
I think tonight.
Okay, that's You get one question and one question. seeing is, I'm seeing that in that earth life, and I actually think your timing is like pretty accurate, 1800s, early 1900s. In that lifetime, I can see that you're raised in a family where you have a lot of siblings, you know, like more than a dozen siblings, okay? And as would anyone in that circumstance, you're either going to be invisible or you're going to have to find some unique identifiable feature about yourself to get some attention. And you did feel very, very invisible. In your birth order, you were particularly surrounded by brothers, so the girls kind of fell away from you, so this kind of put you in the middle of this whole big boy batch, which was less appealing to your parents to be a girl in the middle of all that. They found the boys far more interesting. So throughout your life, you would do things. I guess your family calls you a hypochondriac, okay? So you would do things and have real drama when nothing was really going on, okay? And I can actually see, I'm looking at something, I feel like we're near a fence. There's some kind of a fence, and there are things that are holding other things up, and the fence is made of wood and metal, all right? And I don't know why it's made of wood and metal, but it's in disrepair. And so some of the stuff, there's like a metal sheet on the fence, and I can feel like when you're opening the gate, because the fence is in disrepair, part of the metal comes and falls onto your hand, okay? It cuts, it doesn't cut it off or anything like that, but it cuts your hand severely, bleeding and all that. So you had a little bit of this, the boy that cries wolf syndrome. So now when you run in the house and you've got this blood and this hand and this mess, and you're screaming and shouting, no one's paying attention to you. And they're thinking it's fake blood, or they're thinking it's this, or they're thinking that you cut it yourself to get the blood going. And that's the moment that you're brought into. Why is it that people don't believe that this is real, or why do they think I did it to myself? In the meantime, it was severe enough that even like some tendons were cut. Like before we had the medical capability of you actually repairing this hand. So as it did repair and it was treated, the wound itself was treated, your hand was never the same again. And so the scars and the lack of mobility, and you would have pain in 3 of your fingers for the rest of your life, was a constant and never-ending reminder of the boy that cried wolf syndrome. And instead of using it to ignite you to feel that you had to be who you are and get attention, exactly everything we're talking about tonight, right? You used it as a way to feel shame and become more withdrawn and feel less visible, rather than to feel like it ignited you into letting go of needing that kind of attention from other people. So when you're glancing back at the lifetime and you say nobody was interested when you died, that's the flavor of the whole life, is just that's kind of summarizing how you felt in that earth life. It's not that it was true, it's summarizing how you felt.
I could feel I was very alone, so I did, yeah, I guess I withdrew.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. Everyone expects to find these beautiful tales when we go back in history and we find our other selves, but, you know, history is very, very bleak, and we are evolutionary. So it certainly makes a lot of sense that you're having a better lifetime now than in any of your other lifetimes. You might have had some really good and happy moments, but for the most part, you know, we endured a lot in our travels on the earth, you know? And so we generally weren't able to open the knocks on the door from the universe to the wisdom that they were trying to enlighten us with. We would usually slam the door on the universe and say, I'm going to do it my way, but then we would stay in this perpetual state of unhappiness or being stuck and not moving forward and not letting the soul grow. But now, this is all different, right? I mean, now we're finding more and more pockets of people that let the soul grow. So when something knocks on your door that's unpleasant, at least we know how to help each other to open the knock on the door and interpret it and make value of it. But that's an example of how you were relatively young when that happened. The universe gave you this really prominent capability of shifting your thinking and being and your self-love, but like a lot of times when we get a knock on the door, we interpret it in exactly the opposite way. Woe is me, right? And then we go forward with that feeling of being less than or feeling shame instead of feeling like, oh, you know what? It's designed to snap you out of that state of hypnosis. That is interesting that you saw all that. Yeah. Really interesting. But you have no problem letting your consciousness fly, really, you know? Yeah, no problem letting it fly. And you didn't live very long in that lifetime, but who would want to, right?
Well, yeah. Insane.
Get rid of this. Move on to another. Now I feel, let me try this one on. Okay, we're running out of time, so I want to make sure I read at least, unless anyone has to leave, I'm going to hold you after class. I'll do 2 more. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
I should have stopped sooner so I could have read more. And every time I do this, I say, I'll read more next month. And then no one tells me to read more. I'm going to talk too much. Okay, we have John.
There you go.
I'm John. I'm John Well. Yeah.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing. So, what do? I ask a question?
Ask a question. Anything you're curious about?
About a past life or something?
Anything. The universe.
Relationship.
Mini reading.
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew you were going to get picked. I really honestly did.
Get a new person.
I knew John would get picked. I don't know how I knew it.
Because it's fixed.
He's typing. I'm sorry.
So, all right. So, in any of my past life, was I ever a female?
Oh yes.
I could have answered that.
I think just about everybody in the room could have answered that. So I'll elaborate. I'll elaborate. Because, yeah. It's not, yeah.
Everyone laughed at me.
No. We just all, most of us in this room understand that in order to become whole, it's important that we not be myopic and only seeing ourselves in one version of our own expression of our identity physically, right? So we'll get myopic if we only see one over and over and over again. So the universe is not going to let us replicate the same circumstances that much. So we have to try on new stuff to see how it fits, okay? As a matter of fact, when I make fun of like the historical men who had all the power and ruined our world, I am allowed to make fun of it. I'm allowed to make fun of anything in history because I could have been that man, right? So I'm not really judging anything. It could have been me. Well, I know. Okay, so I can quickly see in even the last 400 years, 4 opportunities that you were female, okay? And in the last 400 years, I can see 2 opportunities that you were male, this being your 3rd now. So just in that time span, in 400 years, you had female 4 times and male 3 times, okay? And that's just this, all right? I'm going back to, and sometimes I can get a lot of detail, sometimes detail's a little fuzzy, but I'm getting a lot of detail. The year is 1810. How I got a year that specific, it almost never ever happens. But maybe there's something researchable. I'll tell you more and we'll see if it's researchable. You were female and in 1810 you were 17 years old. You were living in the United States, up in the Northeast. It feels like outside of Boston. Wow, that's really specific, okay? 17 years old in 1810. Give me plus or minus 5 years. And wow, you, I don't know enough about history. I'm going to just do the best I can because I can't interpret it historically. The only thing that I can tell you is Oh, I wish I was born deaf. I'm going to sound like a fool for a minute, okay? Pretend I'm really smart. Okay, there were people that fought for England, and then there were people that fought for the colonies.
Fine.
I can't do both things at the same time.
Okay, we'll help.
So, the ones that came from England, for some reason, some of them stayed after the war. This is what doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why they would stay. Wouldn't you think they would just go back home? This is why I'm a little lost in my frame of reference. But apparently some of the fighters for England, maybe they converted, I don't know. But they're still here, and they're still in that area. And when you are 17 years old, one of the men that fought, you have a relationship with him. He's significantly older than you. I don't know what he's still doing here, but it's a big turning point in your life. I don't think it was initially consensual, but eventually it became consensual. I think sometimes like that whole captor-captive kind of syndrome thing that goes on. And it's an interesting thing because as you would continue to live your life and continue to know this man, your lens of perception about being female, what rights you had to making your own choices about marriage or sex, it interplayed against the backdrop of the birth of a nation. So it was kind of weird how like you were growing in this growing nation and everybody was so unsure, and your backdrop of being female in what was turning out to be a very, very male world, the birth of our nation. It's just so fascinating the way it interplayed against each other. And as you got older and were able to be more liberated in how you would choose the course of your life, you actually were very philosophical about it, about you being raised with the nation being raised. And you became really introspective about it too in your later years, really reflecting upon what it was like to be a young girl. I never thought about what's it like to be a girl born the same year virtually that our country is born. It's interesting, isn't it? But you were very, very reflective of that, almost poetic about it and philosophical. But in that lifetime, which isn't that long ago in the scheme of things, it was just really difficult for you to be human on any level because you had already been relatively spiritually evolved. And by relatively, I mean there's always going to be those of us who are more connected to our souls and our human experience than most of humanity is. And you already had that property then. And as an evolutionary being, that means that there's a great likelihood that that's still a property about you. Okay? That's one example of you being female. You asked. That was interesting. When I go into something like that, I just want to know more and more. Why can't I remember anything about the Revolutionary War now? Why would they stay? Why would they stay?
Maybe the boats.
Children.
Huh?
They have children.
Oh, maybe. Or a wife or something.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah. Freedom.
Go
Yeah, right?
back to England, it's
Anyway, I just never
Kind of
thought of it,
society.
history in those terms
They also could have
before.
brought
Back to
ships
England was a
though,
king.
and I had enough room on a ship to go back either.
Interesting. It's all interesting. I'm so
Maybe they had a
fascinated
family
by
back in
that.
England they didn't want to go back
Oh, yeah. That one. Yeah.
Start over.
She'll never catch me here.
All right, one more. Okay. The pressure's on. Whoever you are, you better make it very interesting.
Yeah, ready?
I knew this one too. That's so freaky, Bill. I just knew it. I just knew it. All right, Bill.
Well, give me a female past life.
Oh, now that would really be up to you. Okay, so let's find you somewhere.
Do you see like everything in it goes?
Yeah. Yes. Already I can see where we're going. I knew we were going to the early 1700s, so we're going by timeline today mostly. And you guys have seen me do this a lot. I might have a century or a few decades, things narrowed down to, but I generally don't get a year. But now I know the year again, and it's right around 1740. I have no idea what was going on in the world in 1740 whatsoever. 1740, that's like,
Weird number.
what a weird number.
What country are we in?
We're definitely in Europe. That I can see some of the things that might be typical of that setting. I see cities that are starting to sprawl. I see a lot of Belgian block and cobblestone and things like that. I can see buildings getting a little bit taller, a little bit closer together. So I definitely know we're in Europe. I don't know what the disease is, but I keep seeing the city that you live near. You are female. I keep seeing the city that you live near. I keep seeing it like dark. I know it's not just because I'm coming into one moment in time where it was night, right? I just feel like there's a darkness, and as I'm staying there for a minute, I can feel that the darkness is coming from pain. That there's been a lot of pain, and it feels disease-related pain. I mean, it's obviously not the Black Plague, that wasn't in 1740, but it feels like there was some kind of disease that had a major effect on people. And where I'm coming into you right there, huh?
Smallpox.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I really don't know. But I see you, you look like you're about 20 years old, and your betrothed died from whatever this illness is. As a matter of fact, you know, we say 20, and, you know, you should have been married already. You're like an old bag by now. So where I'm being brought into, you just really are an old, everyone treats you like you're an old, put her out to pasture, become a librarian, and start knitting Afghans. And so what, you know, here your whole life, there was only one assumption, that you would meet someone or your family would find someone for you. You'd court, you'd get engaged at 17, you'd be married by 18. There was no other plan, there was no other design, there was no other frame of reference, because there was no other frame of reference. So now here you are, after you go through the loss of him before you got married, you're not a widow. So you have no permission for sympathy. You have no one saying, I'll introduce you to the widow. All you are now is a single woman that's unmarried at 20. So it's a whole different definition, because you didn't lose your husband. You only lost your betrothed. So it's fascinating that one simple difference made all the difference. So from that moment on, people judged you. They didn't introduce you to their sons. They didn't take you around and say you were marriageable because you were too old to get married.
What, life expectancy was probably 40 or something like that.
Amazing, right? Something interesting. Simple little things you just don't think about in history, right? Fascinating.
What happened to him in his lifetime?
She did not get married. You did not get married. No. Did not get married.
So what happened to the rest of the
Well, that's kind of sad, Bill.
Or maybe not.
Second life, huh? Sad, Bill.
When you became a doting aunt, and you know, you're really good with your nieces and nephews, and you took care of your parents, and you know, did all that. But I can't see a lot of shit, make you feel better. I can see that when you were in your 30s, when you were in your late 30s, you actually, huh?
That's old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like nearly dead.
That's old.
So, I can see that you actually wind up having a physical relationship with a man in your late 30s.
Yay!
I think you're the inspiration for the 40-year-old version. Well, we had to swap it up. We didn't want to do the female bit again. We had to do it with the male this time. So you were the Hollywood inspiration because someone channeled that life with you. There you go.
I mean, from 20 to 39?
No,
Nothing. Now, here's what's really interesting.
And wait, was that his first sexcapade?
Yes. Totally first.
Not even with the betrothed?
Nothing.
That's good.
Nothing. She was a good girl.
I thought that too.
But what's interesting is this shows you like how patterns of lives really work. We would love a romantic ending that he finally marries you and you have a couple of kids and all that, but it doesn't work out that way. What did happen was the shame that you felt. The shame that you felt in losing your virginity out of marriage reignited the shame that you felt in being an old maid at 20. So having sex created the same damn cycle of how you felt when you were in your 20s. That's kind of a weird loop. You really looped that one around.
Really?
The universe knocks on your door, like, how can I make this fantastic opportunity as miserable as humanly possible? I know.
Are you making it up for this life, though?
And then I died.
Boy, that lot of years of suffering first.
You lived to 70.
Yeah, no, that was the year the life you lived to 100.
The oldest woman ever.
The old woman in the There's probably a statue for you somewhere.
I'm going to find that city, go back.
Thanks for letting me be so entertaining with you. I did try to make a little bit more fun with it, because it actually is really sad. Oh, it's sad! What you were going to get married with? Yeah. Marie looked it up. It's venereal disease. I'm sorry. Oh, this is Ryan. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, but the one thing that I could see being important to you in this lifetime as a result of that lifetime is to help other people not lapse into any feeling of shame. Okay. Shame is it's a life-eating emotion that really doesn't bring us to any productive place, and it's probably the most difficult emotion. And since the world, your culture, put shame on you the first time, and then you redefined yourself as being shameful the second time, you've had pretty much a bulk of your existence in that lifetime in that body feeling something that can't ever be a win, can't ever give you freedom, can't ever let you feel satisfied or happy. Something that you wind up trying to become less than or invisible or anything. But it does help you to see insights into, be quiet, Joe. I don't want to know you, my past life. Oh, what am I supposed to do? She kept her hand. I don't want to know. No, but it does help you get some insights into like why you're compassionate and you care about other people, because coming from that experience, everyone should have freedom of choice. Everyone should be allowed to have their life by design, and that's part of the reason why that's a conviction for you in this lifetime. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. On a happier note, I did exaggerate it a little because it was a little funny. Hey, you got chosen. You did that. You, your guide, the universe. All right, thank you, everybody. Just so you know, also for the upcoming rest of the meetings for the year, July through December. On occasion, we'll be doing something so fun, hands-on-y. When you register, if you register online, there might be a small materials fee too. But still, just come, and I promise it'll be worth it. So don't mind putting an extra couple of dollars in your cart, okay? But we do have some very, very fun, hands-on things that are going to be coming up. All right, you're not going to either know till you get here or till you register online, but they're going to be there and they're going to be fun. So, okay.